Okay, I think we'll begin. We missing some folks, I think, from who signed up, but that's okay. We'll get started so that they can filter on in as we go. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day and this time that we get to gather and God, learn and grow and hopefully connect with one another. We pray that this session will be a blessing and that this conference will be a blessing. We are thankful for the generosity of Pastor Schrank and Christ Church Lutheran and all the folks here helping out. We ask you to bless their church greatly, Lord. Thank you for their gifts to us. Lord, we pray for this day and we lift it up in the name of our Savior Jesus. Amen. Amen. All right, so my name is TJ Winters. I'm the pastor of online ministries at Concordia Lutheran Church in San Antonio, Texas. Little background, I've been there for about 17 years, a little over 17 years now. So a long time. Started as tech support and then moved into worship leader and director of IT and now pastor of online ministries as I went through seminary. A lot has changed in tech in the last 17 years. You know, and it's kind of embarrassing to be the tech person. And on the Hova app, some people ask questions and I couldn't figure out how to answer them. So yes, it was something. Something was there. I don't think it was my fault. I'm just going to say that. But there was nowhere to tap. There was nowhere to answer. But yes, so both those questions, we should be able to at least talk through some of that today. So, good. So what was... It was interesting to see how many folks are streaming, which I would expect, right? If this is talking about moving on to the next level. But how many folks in here are streaming currently? Great. Most of you. That's awesome. If you're not, that's okay. That's okay. So, first of all, I want to lay down a few ground rules for today. There's a few things that we're going to talk about, a lot of different methods, a lot of different things that come up. Some things that may be a little more like you may be, some folks may be turned off by it, may reject it. That's okay. Just realize we're here to talk about it, talk about how things go, what can work, and what works in one context may not work in all contexts. Not all churches have the same setup, the same staff, the same abilities, the same freedoms. Some have more, some have less. And so just know that as we go into this, all this needs to be adapted to what works for you, what works with your congregations, right, and with your staffing. The other thing is, the things I show you are just how we do it. It doesn't mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean it's the best way. It doesn't mean that we're doing it the best way that we could be doing it. It just means this is where we are right now. And everybody's in a different place, right, with tech, with streaming, with worship. So the other thing is this, I'm not going to really get deep theologically in this. I've done that before in other sessions. I've made arguments for Church Online and use Scripture, and I think there's a great argument for using it, for having that ability for your congregations. And you're all streaming, so you probably all think so too. But I'm not going to get very theological in this and in depth on that, okay? So, the first thing, in past years, if you've been to any of my sessions, first of all, who's here for the first time to BPM? Awesome. Awesome. Wow. This church is amazing. These folks are just such a blessing. We've been here since, I think this is probably my 10th time here or something. And Pastor Tucker, my senior pastor, is pretty good friends with Pastor Jeff Schrank. And so, in the past years, Jeff has said, hey, we could really use some help. If you guys are coming out a day early, let us know. So we fly out a couple days early. And we've made signs and put together posters and hung up the signs, all everything we can. They have so many people here helping out and offering, and just a willing attitude to love on all of us. So they are a blessing. So be thankful for them. Encourage them when you see them. They're amazing. But most of us have been streaming, and there was a huge catalyst that came up a few years ago, right? Who was streaming before COVID? Those numbers are a lot lower, right? So that looked to be about, quick glance, 8 out of the 25, 30, 40 here. So, yeah, COVID changed a lot of things for us. And how did that go for most of you? Oh, chuckles. Did it go well? Who did it go really well for? Switching and pivoting to online right away. Great. Yeah, you had no choice, right? Kind of do something. And you're still streaming then. Did anybody stop streaming? One church.
Stopped and restarted.
Stopped and restarted. Okay, great. So you've kind of gone back and forth depending and, okay.
It was sort of a that could
Absolutely.
to actually come back.
Absolutely.
And then it was missed.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been streaming. I started doing this, like I said, I've been at Concordia for 17 years. I started in 2006 is when we started streaming. And that was before the iPhone was out. And it's been a lot of change over the years. It is so easy now, I'll just tell you that much. It used to be a mess. The goal has never been, though, for Church Online to replace, at least for us, has not been to replace in-person worship. There's community. We could have done this whole conference online, right? Y'all could be on Zoom call right now and just looking at my face. We wouldn't have had to spend the hundreds of dollars in travel to get here and the time away from work and family. But there's something about in-person, that community, that connection that we're created to live in, right? We're created for this. This is our role. Thank you, Lotus. Yeah. So Church Online for us is not meant to be a complete replacement. It's meant to supplement or to augment in-person worship. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But for some people, it ends up being that. One of the questions on the Hova app was, how do we engage beyond chatting with those who absolutely don't come in person? So whether they're shut in, or they're concerned, or health issues, or they just don't want to, right? They prefer pajama church. How do we engage with those folks? Because there are those people that this is the only option. There's been numerous folks that we have bought a Roku for and just set it up and given it to them in their home because they're either elderly and couldn't do the tech themselves, or even in a nursing care facility. Oh, I thought it was on Do Not Disturb. I hope that doesn't keep happening. I'll quit it if it does. So there's a lot of reasons to have this ministry, but for us, one of those reasons is not to replace what we're doing in person, okay? So prior to COVID, and in streaming in general, most folks deal with like a passive participation. It's the Netflix model, right? It's just watching, just viewing, and that's it. Whereas what we want to get them to is active participation. Active participation. That's ideally what we want, because we want folks to go from just being viewers to being members, to being engaging, to be part of the team, part of the ministry. And side note, I just saw someone take a picture of this. Totally fine. Take as many pictures of the slides as you want. I can provide everything for you on the Hova app if you don't want to do that. And there's something at the end with a bunch of links that you don't need to worry about writing those down. I'll put those in the app for sure. That'd be the big one, is the resources. So passive participation. Like I said, this is kind of where we often start. And that's fine. This is where we start, and this is where we've landed for years, is just streaming, which is great. We all need to do that. But the idea here is the members then, or the viewers, they're not really engaging much. They may not be growing in their faith. Maybe they are because they're hearing the word of God, right? And where the word of God, faith comes by hearing, right? So they absolutely could be growing in their faith. But they're most likely not growing in relationship with other members and with the congregation. And with you, if that's your job as a staff member, or with the pastors or anything like that. So I thought it was interesting. The poll, now these numbers have changed, but I did not update my slides. On the poll I did on the Hova app, here's what we had. About 83%, again, this has gone down a little bit. There's some of these came up a little bit, but it was 83% streamed to Facebook, 83% streamed to YouTube, because you can do multiple at once, right? It's not just one group only. 33% to the website, and only 16% was to Church Online platform. How many of you are familiar with Church Online platform? Great, I'm glad you are. We'll get the rest of you familiar with it too, because it's a huge blessing. So this shows that these are the least barrier to entry, right? These are the simplest. I mean, you can just grab your phone and start going live now with both of these. These are a little more complicated. These require some attention, right? So I was reading an article from Carey Nieuwhof. Everybody familiar with Carey Nieuwhof? And it was very timely. It came just yesterday or 2 days ago. And I wanted to talk about a little bit of that, because what he talks about is owned spaces, okay? He just talked about this. Let me switch around here. Owned spaces. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, those are not owned spaces. We don't own those. So we are at the mercy of those platforms. It's easy It's easy to stream to them. It goes quickly, and they provide all the infrastructure, which is a huge, huge blessing. But the downside to that is they also control everything. You have no control. You can put your video on there, and everything else is kind of up to them. So Kerry talked about, for example, in 2018, he said this. Facebook changed its algorithm one day, and literally overnight, traffic from Facebook dropped 80%. That was to his blog. Because Facebook put in an algorithm change. Because they're not for you, they're not for me, they're for themselves, and that's their job. They're a profit-making company. Their job is to increase their profit. They made a change not to necessarily harm Christians or harm anybody, but for themselves. And so he lost 80% of his traffic, so he had to adapt and go, great, how do I get into a new space that can gain that back? Because that's a huge hit if that's your primary income. Those are the owned spaces. And so ideally, we have control of where we're streaming. That doesn't mean we don't also do Facebook. Like we stream to all four of those things I had up there earlier. We stream to our website, we stream to Church Online Platform, we stream to YouTube, and we stream to Facebook. So those other places are great places to be. We should be there. You should be on Facebook. You should be on YouTube if possible. But when they're your primary, just know that you're walking on thin ice. There's a chance that they could pull the rug out, and then you've got to adapt again. Make sense? Now, the blessing that these places have, one of the huge things, is analytics, right? We're going to spend some time on analytics, but it's more of a primer to give you an idea of how to think through it. We're not going to do a deep dive, but analytics. So let's look at one of our Facebook posts. This is just this last weekend, okay? Completely vulnerable, completely real. You're seeing everything. So this was a Facebook post. This was actually one of our live videos, just Sunday morning, our third live service. Reached 687 people. Okay? Now, if we look at that, we go, okay, 687, that's great. Now, I pulled that up today, though. So that's 687 today. If I pull that up in an hour, that might change. If I pull it up tomorrow, it should be higher, right? But then when you do a little deep dive, when you actually go into the analytics and look at what's going on, you start to see that there's a little difference. Ooh. Great engagement at the first minute. And then it just kind of tapers off. In fact, you can even see most of your audience dropped off the 2-minute and 4-second mark. The average watch time is 1:28. Now, that factors in everything since Sunday through today. I could not personally, and we don't, but I could not report this number and say, here's our attendance, 687 people at this service, without going, yeah, but most of them left within a minute. That's something that never happens in person, right? Every once in a while, you may have somebody walk in and walk out, but not 687 people. And if you do, you may want to change your methods. So, looking even deeper, ultimately, during the live, we had 16 people. Not a lot. 3-second views, 120, that kind of drifted off as well. That's the live portion. So how you decide that you're going to measure your analytics really matters, because if you take this number, you think you're doing an amazing job or a better job, because this could be in the thousands. We've had this in like 5,000 before, depending like on Easter and things like that. If that's the number we went off of, we would think we're booming. Watch out, Elevation Church, you know? Lutherans coming at you. But this is it. The maximum amount of people at one time watching was 16 on Sunday. So that is actually what I choose to report for that service. I'll say there were 16 people on Facebook. YouTube has its own. Our website has its own, and Church Online Platform has its own. You add them all up, and there's your... Yes?
Are those analytic reports easy to find
Mm-hmm.
if you're an admin on the site?
Yes, I don't trust my internet to do a live demo, but basically once you're on your page, there's something called Creator Studio. You can go there, and that's where you can see engage, analytics on every post. So you got posts, live videos, offline things, just anything you do, and then you can dive deeper into Facebook.
Question.
Yeah.
So Boxcast, but I copy the link on our Facebook. Can you do analytics when you do something like that from Facebook to see how many people are actually clicking on that and watching it?
So say that again. What's your method exactly?
We use Boxcast.
Yeah, Boxcast.
I copy and paste the link to our Facebook page. Is there a way
So
to-
the link to your Facebook page, meaning like you're sitting there streaming and they just click it to go to your Facebook page?
They click it to go to the website, and it goes to the Boxcast on our What Church website.
Ah,
Is there any way to do the analytics that way through Facebook to see how many people are actually?
maybe. Boxcast may have like a source where they
I
came
think
from.
they do, yeah.
Facebook may have even how many people click the link. Yeah, it's possible. It may be possible.
Right to Facebook from Boxcast?
It's a different streaming thing.
Oh, we do that with Boxcast. They'll send to Facebook or YouTube or something.
Yeah.
We don't do YouTube though.
Yeah. I'll talk to you about YouTube. The reason we started YouTube, I can't believe I missed this years ago. I hadn't done it for years. I thought, who cares? Why do we need another one? They can go to our site. They can go to our app. They can go to Facebook. And then I was at a member's house and they were just talking to me and they're like, oh, it's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of hard to get this on my TV. I'm like, oh, I don't even have a smart TV. Like, I've got the Apple TV thing, but my TV isn't nice. Well, a lot of TVs are smart TVs. YouTube is built in. And it's so simple. And you guys have already thought about that. But it took me like 10 years to think through that. And I'm like, dumb. This is really easy to just turn on a button and stream to stream to YouTube. And every person with a smart TV can just search Concordia, San Antonio, and find it and then watch live. And it's easier than anything. So it was great, yeah.
That actually is, I mean, I honestly don't like going to YouTube. I would much prefer going with some other choices.
Yep.
But I actually went out and set up one of our members on there, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what was going on. It was like, oh yeah, YouTube, click, oh, there it is, okay,
Yep.
you're all set.
Yep.
Members do mimosas, they sit down, they had to do streaming, and they
That's
turn
right.
it on. And
That's right. And that's the thing. When we're in, I'll get you here in a second. We are in this world now where we have to create double work for ourselves because we're trying to hit everybody, and not everybody's engaged in one thing, and there's so many options. So Facebook is the easiest thing, but there's some people who won't join Facebook. Okay, YouTube on your TV. Well, some people don't have smart TVs. Okay, your app. Well, they don't know how to get apps because they don't know their iCloud passcode, their password. Okay, the website. Maybe we can get that, right? And so there are all these different things. In fact, even here at this conference, how many of you are using the Hova app? Most of you. Okay. All the signs on the doors, though, are because there's folks who aren't going to use the app. So they put in all the work to put all the sessions in this app, and they printed off all the signs for the analog world. Like, that's the world we live in. And in order to help and bless everybody, because that's the point. We're not trying to just make sure everybody's pleased. We're trying to hit everybody. We're trying to reach everybody wherever they are. And technology produces a bad barrier, a great barrier for a lot of folks. And the easier we can make that, the better. But it takes more work on our end. Yeah.
So we use YouTube, and our elders tasked me as a pastor we need to start tracking, not just in person, because it's starting to go up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are shut in, but then choose to shut in. And we use, the analytics in there, the unique viewers,
Yeah.
and they're engaged 20 minutes or more.
Yeah.
And so that's 60 to 80 average for a Sunday, sometimes 90, it just depends. But I hear of this, many churches are doing it's not factoring in that there's usually two people per
Mhm.
family. So I've heard a
Multiplier.
1.8. Like,
Yep.
Can you help me?
Yeah. So in case you didn't hear or whatever, there's basically when you imagine you and your family are watching church online, you're watching on YouTube, right? That registers on your analytics as one connection, but there may be 4 people in your family. We've got 6 in ours. So how do you account for that? It's tough. Here's the thing about analytics. You need to pick one and stick with it forever in order to track changes over time. It's not going to be there is no perfect analytic. If you're a pastor in here or if your pastor is asking you, we need exact numbers. It can't happen. It can't happen. And the analytics can change. And we don't have control. So there's so many things factoring into this. But what he's talking about is a multiplier. So assuming. So you know some people are going to drop off after 20 seconds or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. You know some houses have 1 in it. You know some people have 4. And you know there's probably a glitch in there somewhere. So how do you account for that? So some folks use a multiplier. They'll take the connections they have, the IP addresses, the individual, let's just say 100, and they'll multiply that by 1.6. Now you've got 160. And that factors in some of those folks who have more people in the house, but it's really unfaithful to like multiply everything by 5. 1.6, 1.8, 2, 2.5, somewhere in there is what some people do. We used to do that. We track both. We absolutely track both. I just have an Excel sheet that I stole from online, and just put a second column in it that said 1.6, just so I can kind of get an idea of maybe what I'm thinking. But we report the actual individual connections. We take the attendance hit, basically. We're willing to go, I want to err on the side of caution and on the low end. But I don't think it's unfaithful to do like a 1.5 to 2.3 multiplier. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
One thing that I have found over the years of trying to adapt to people who are not at the service themselves is the fact that, and this was just a short period of time, in a matter of 5 years, you move from something like you have DVDs, portable DVD players that you send to the shut-ins.
Yep.
Right. And we're moving out of that idea of people who are unfamiliar or unwilling to move from their flip phone to something that is smart. And especially during the COVID time, it became very, very clear that most of the people who are now starting to become shut in or choose to be shut in have that capability.
Yeah.
And so we stopped doing DVDs.
Yeah.
We just don't do it. Why? Because nobody wants them. They have it right there. You know? Why watch it 2 days later?
Yeah, I've had one person in the last 2 years, I think, said that they just have nothing. They just need a DVD. Yeah, it's pretty rare. Yeah.
So we switched to, with our boosting, a lot of times we're through plays. So right now our message, 20-ish minutes, we're getting about anywhere from 300 a week to almost 500 within a 3-week period.
Yeah.
How do I reach out to those 500 watching the entire message? You haven't found a way to talk with them?
Where you streaming from?
Oh, so I'm strictly off of Facebook.
Yeah, there's privacy issues too, that like they don't always give you all the information. You can kind of see who, and you would have to ask for it. You have to say, if you've done this, then click here and fill out this info. You really do. Like, we need to talk to you. If you're one of these folks, we need to talk to you. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I haven't done it yet, but a lot of churches are where your members can register, like fill out a care card online
Yeah.
if they're watching.
Yep.
What is the success of that? What are the...
There's a lot of folks. See, we're Lutherans, right? So people want their attendance tracked. So we have folks that want to do it. We used to mandate it. We used to put something on the screen like a pop-up that they couldn't even get in until they filled out the attendance. And what's funny is what ended up happening is we would track that. And then over time, we added all that up and then added the digital connections by Facebook and all these other places. And what we actually found out was that the amount of people watching was about 1.6 multiplier. So that gave us our multiplier by actually practicing it. And now we don't do that anymore. We just, whatever. But yeah, we used to require attendance. And now we offer it. If you'd like to fill out your attendance card, you can do that. Yeah. So that takes us, that's kind of, I wanted to go over the passive participation because we're all familiar with that. We all do that with TV. And the goal is to not only allow that or not only offer that with Church Online, knowing that some people will just choose to do it. Some people are going to do that no matter what. So we want to get to active participation, right? So there's 3 things that I think that we can do, all of us as churches, as ministry leaders, to help foster active participation. We can't make it happen. We're going to do everything we can within our power and resources to make it happen. Yes, sir.
So if I go back to the 1.6.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that number, how many people have been watching? What goes into your synodical report?
I think that would be a faithful number if you chose to, but we don't. We choose to do just the connections without the 1.6.
Who are on campus?
No, I'm sorry. We do online numbers, but without the 1.6 multiplier.
No, so you know what I'm saying by the synodical
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they
Do you have
count.
Do you have a category for online now?
No, they don't. We count it. Yeah.
You add it to your.
We add it. It counts. Yep.
But without a multiplier.
Without a multiplier. Yes. It counts. Yep. We've done that for a long time. Yeah.
What district are you in?
Texas.
Yeehaw.
For Indiana, they require us to do in-person and then online worship.
Great.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's different. I didn't know that. I thought we were all doing the same thing.
I'd love it if there was a separate category and kind of just even get more down, drilled into details. But so one of the things that I think is vital for active participation may not even be in your purview. Real quick, just a couple folks. What's your role? What's your role in your church? Why are you here? What's yours?
I'm the director of communication.
Okay, director of communications.
I drink and know things.
What's director of communications? What'd you say?
I drink and know things.
Okay, good. Good. Okay. So some of this, like specifically communications, depending on how your churches are staffed, you may not have much control over, but would be to actually make the services online friendly. The service itself, the worship service can be an approachable thing. You can do this through a few different ways. And again, here, we're not getting theological here. I'm not trying to disrespect worship service and things, but I'm calling it content, okay? Presentation of the content. Let's just look at it from a design standpoint first and not a theological and worship standpoint. Camera angles, lighting, how are things looking, whatever. And so we've got a few examples I do want to show you that it's taken us years to get here. Like, again, I said we've been streaming since 2005. So it's taken us time, and we still have a lot that we want to do, and nothing's perfect. So anyway, but I'm going to point out some things that we've done just to try to do this ourselves. Okay. Lyrics available. Video available. This is also in our house, live. But the idea is so people online can see everything that's going on. And we can read the lyrics as well. We'll wait for her to stop. Okay, so when we first started, it was one or the other. It was the video of the pastor and then full screen slides the entire rest of the time. That's fine. That's where we started. And then we started to get to hear people saying, hey, we'd really love to see a little more what's going on. So we did like a split screen lyric thing. And that was fine. And then we had people say, well, we want to feel more connected to the room. So I'd like to see the congregation. And so now we're factoring that in and cutting the camera angles and things like that. And what you just saw there, at least for our contemporary services, that is shown in the room at the same time. It's in the house. So the worship leader is on the screen, the pastor is on the screen, and the slides, for the most part, are lower thirds like that, like words like that, or they're actual lower thirds with graphics. Sometimes we'll cut to a full screen if we want a lot of text, but that's what the house sees as well, and they want to focus, and then we go back to video.
So-
Yeah.
How do you feel
Oh,
about
interesting.
image in image? Like put
Picture in picture?
put a full slide in the top corner, say during a sermon.
You can. It can start to distract or detract from it, and then because what it is neither of them are given 100%, right? The pastor isn't given 100% because he's got part of a slide on the screen. The slide isn't given 100% because it's in this corner. I personally prefer to go back and forth as needed, but yeah, everybody can do what they
So,
think's right.
I assume you've got a large room.
Yes, it is a large room.
Okay.
Yes.
So it'd be kind of silly to put a video of what's going on in worship in a smaller
Yes.
venue.
So for a smaller room, correct, you wouldn't necessarily need to if you don't know that term, image magnification. You wouldn't need to put the speaker on the screen if it's a small, like this room. This would not make sense to have me right here, most likely, right? It'd be kind of silly.
So what, in that case, you would just have the lyrics and not,
So that's really when you decide, okay, do we want to make our online presence? Do we want to help these folks have a more active engagement? Do we want to make tailored to them, essentially? And so without changing your service completely, full screen slides in the house, in the service, and then a separate system for online.
You can do a lot of that with ProPresenter and other
Right.
software.
Yeah, do you guys use ProPresenter?
yes.
So ProPresenter has okay. What's the new term?
So look,
Okay, but they just added master-slave replacement. They can't call it that anymore.
I still call it that, so I don't know.
Okay, it's master-slave, right? The idea is, yeah, So one computer controls the other, so you have one operator, you press play, and or next slide, and it's doing it on the second computer automatically over the network. Yeah. And then there's also, screens and looks and stuff. So there's ways to do that without adding a bunch of people. But yes, that would be ideally. And so that, you saw the words down there were transparent all around. That's its own gear to do that kind of thing. So even just a lower third, which is like the video's cropped down and you got graphics down here with words, is much better for the online folks than just a full screen slide. Yeah.
When we moved back to in-person for our worship, we started doing iMac up on the screens, thinking that some of the in-person people would be opposed to it, but what we actually found is a lot of people loved it because when we stood up, they couldn't see up front.
Yeah,
Some
exactly.
of the little ladies that couldn't see what was
Yeah.
going on up front, they loved that they could see them.
Right. As traditional Lutherans, the traditional churches, and some of the way we operate, this kind of stuff can be offensive to some people. You put cameras up now, or you've got the people on the screen. But we do get pretty used to it. And if it's something that you can test out, here's a great thing. Summertime, it's called an experiment.
Yeah.
We're doing an experiment this summer. We just want to see how this works out. We'd love to hear your feedback. Boom, put the people on the screen, test all new things. Make sure it's good. You can't have a bunch of mistakes because then that's all they'll stick in their mind.
Hey TJ, one of the things I was going to say is when we've done all that where we put P&P, we've done
Yep.
when the pastor's slide comes up. I'm talking more about sermons because we do lower thirds and all that.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to the point where we were struggling online with is it distracting to have the same slide because my pastor uses a lot of pictures and stuff like that. So we started doing what Tim Keller does. We actually bring a TV up on
Absolutely.
the platform.
Yes.
And it's kind of a pain to move, but we find ways to around that.
Yeah.
So that it does feel like they're seeing the same thing that we are in the room, and they can see all it's big. It's like
Yeah.
15 inches.
Right.
And it's on a roller and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
there's lots of different ways to
Yep.
help your online audience feel like they're actually in your
Right. That's a great suggestion, having a TV right next to the pastor. If, again, we won't do that. That doesn't probably work in our context just because we don't want to. Like, I would like that idea, but our senior pastor may not. So that's fine. But having it right next to you, then the camera's always on you. And then when the pastor wants to go to the slides, he's going right here, and the camera catches that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have two comments. One is we don't do the iMac because our sanctuary is not quite that big.
Yeah.
But we do pipe the live stream output to our welcome center. And
Yeah.
I'm working on getting a TV in the nursery
Yep.
and the nursing room so that they can still be a part of worship if they have to step out.
Absolutely.
And then it's the same thing they would see at home if they had to stay home with their sick little one or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a continuity there that everybody, I think, so far has really appreciated.
Absolutely.
And then the other comment I had was, when I first took this job, I was definitely a proactive, high-tech person for them. And I learned to just kind of make slow, incremental changes.
Yep.
So like, I wouldn't do like the test summer thing, because that would
Okay.
raise too many eyebrows.
Okay.
So I would just kind of like tweak this or tweak that, and you can look at our live stream over the, past like 2 years, and it's like, oh, that changed. Oh, now you've got emotional on the
Yep.
third. Oh, now you're doing this. And
Yep.
the back and forth, and
Yeah.
we're actually going to try iMac just a little bit.
Yeah, great.
For the children's message.
Perfect.
I think that's a perfect.
Because the people are really wanting to be a part of that more, and they can't see the kids because they're all low.
Okay,
and
so
sitting with Miss
I'm going to give
Amber.
you a big warning on that.
Yeah.
We've done it, and we loved it, and so did the kids. And they love to see themselves on the screen, and they love to wave and see what's going on with the
They are
camera.
behind the screens.
Okay,
'Cause
perfect.
The way our sanctuary
Perfect.
is, it's forward.
Yeah.
And so
There you go.
hoping it
Mission-
works. We're just gonna
problem
try
solved.
it. I gave
Absolutely.
my video operator green light, so just do it.
Absolutely.
See what happens.
That's great.
But it's also just one little change.
Yep.
So like,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and that buy-in, that experiment over the summer really can easily be sold by the pastor from the pulpit at some point, announcements time or whatever. Hey guys, I want to try this with our church. So you're not the one doing it.
Yeah.
They are. And if it doesn't work, it was an experiment. We're done. Over. Yeah.
One of the things that happened, we had a security camera for a long time just to record the services, put them on DVDs,
Yep.
whatever. We went to a single camera system, and then COVID hit. And for our church, it was kind of opposite of doing it slow. They saw that, and what can we do in order to make this thing much more like the person is here? So we switched to a 4-camera system with one pointed out towards the congregation, and actually now I'm looking and saying, wow, we need more angles, we need more of this, we need more of that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like people see the possibilities and they just can't get enough. They want they want the full
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
So-
COVID provided that, and never waste a crisis. If you can capitalize, on a situation to get it to be best for everybody, great. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question on engaging people on the live stream. How have you found to, like, some prompts?
Yeah.
To get people talking, going to, like,
That's tough. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's tough. That is tough. So you saw the worship leader. You saw, words down there. I'm going to show you a second clip of how pastorally we can help make the service, help people feel a little more welcome to the service.
And if you have any questions after the
Get you after
service,
this.
going out the back, hang left in the
So,
entryway. You're going to see
Pastor's
our
doing
welcome
liturgy.
center. Stop on
He's
by
looking
there.
at everybody in the
We have
room,
a
right?
gift that we'd like to share with you. It's just our way of saying thank you. If this is your first time with us in worship today,
Now he switches
and then we hope that you come on back. And if you're
to the
worshiping
camera.
online, hey, we're glad that you're worshiping from wherever it is you are. And maybe you're new to our online services. Good to have you. And so if you're watching on Facebook or maybe on the website, you'll see a little chat box. Go ahead and introduce yourself, ask any questions you might have. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And here's our invitation. If you can make it to our campus for a service someday, one day, we'd love to have you join us. And our promise is that we'll make you feel right at home. But whether you are worshiping online or right here, we are glad that you are, and God bless you.
So he made the invitation. Come in person. That is a passive-aggressive way of also talking to people in town who are doing pajama church, right? Come in person. We're not calling them out. We're not saying stop being lazy. We're not saying whatever. Just saying, hey, we'd love to have you here. And of course, it's an open invitation to those who aren't in the area to come on campus as well. Yes, ma'am.
Does he ever look at the camera while he's preaching?
Sometimes it's glances, though. Yeah. Yep.
Because when we set it up, our tech director said it feels weird to people watching on the screen if the speaker looks directly into the camera.
Uh-huh.
But would it be weird or would it feel inclusive if the pastor does occasionally glance past it just like he does in the rest of the room?
I think it would be inclusive. And so are you IMAGing in your room?
No, it's not a huge room.
Okay, so part of it, what we found is people in the room, a lot of them watch the screen anyway. So looking at the camera was great for the people in the room also, but it's way better for online. And so I really don't think the people won't notice in the room, right? If he's
No,
if
they
he's
won't
like talking
notice
like this, right now I'm looking at the camera and I moved on.
No,
Right
they
now I'm
won't.
looking at the camera and then I move on. You hardly can tell that.
So that does actually help engage
Yeah.
to include that.
It makes them feel like they're recognized and they're there and they're not this outsider looking in. You had a question before the video.
Yeah, and that was just, you get any feedback about the latency?
No.
So that slight delay doesn't bother you?
No. Are you talking audio that we just heard? Or you mean
so
like...
if you're watching it up on the screen, there's just a tiny bit of latency
Oh,
on the
no.
first line?
Somebody said that. We've got a huge run of cable. It's almost at the full max. There's nothing you can do. We're just... When you move your arm, then it goes up there, right? Like this. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. No, it happens everywhere. It happens at concerts. There's probably better systems if we spent hundreds of $1,000s more. It's fine. Yeah, no issue.
How does your pastor know exactly where to look when he's going to address the camera?
Yep, good question. So we don't use tally lights currently, or I don't think we do. We might. Actually, maybe we do. Anyway, if we don't now, we are in the future because we're upgrading some things. But we have a primary camera. The main one, it's dead in center. That's our good camera. It's our best quality. The other camera shots are all like secondary, so he'll never look at those. It's only this one. But if you had multiple and it could be needed, tally lights are the way to do it. Yeah, that integrates with most switchers.
Do you have a TV or anything in the back of the church that the pastor looks at? I mean, I always forget the name. I know there's a name for that.
Confidence monitor.
Confidence monitor, yeah.
So, yes, he doesn't look at it. He does. The guy, that's not our senior pastor. That was Zach McIntosh who was up there. He's an executive pastor. Bill Tucker's a senior pastor. He says he can't see it. And it isn't that big. It's only, it's 65 inches, and the distance is way farther from, well, not way, but farther from here to the back of the room. So he can't see it. Zach can see it. And so we'll do the per presenter thing with like the words up there large, for stage display. If you've used that, he can read the whole scripture reading just by staring here. And coincidentally, camera 1 is right under that TV, so it looks great. Yeah.
We've got a conference monitor in the back, and we actually had our most success about a year and a half ago when we switched our pastors to run their own slides using an iPad.
Yep.
They take over representing the message, and they love that.
Nice.
And then I love it. It keeps them at a standing table, so they're not wandering around.
It's good.
Right. And so yeah, it's been great for our volunteers too. They don't have to try to guess where that slide comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been a really, really great thing.
Yeah, pastors are the worst.
I have to run down and reconnect it, which makes me look like a miracle worker too.
Well, yeah, there you go. That's good. All right, one more and then we'll move on. Go ahead.
From a technical standpoint, are you guys using live operator cameras or PTZs?
Both. Yeah, we're using robotic cameras, PTZs, and then we have a couple live operators. And that's one of those things we've slowly added over time and very meticulously, and you don't want to ruffle any feathers for us where the camera is or whatever.
I was going to say it's encouraging for you to say you guys are doing this over a 10, 15-year period.
Yes.
I know a lot of us are in the last year and a half, like all this stuff is encouraging here.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a long time it can, depending, heck, money can solve a lot of problems, right? If you can hire 10 staff and spend a couple $100,000 on some gear, you could probably get, better than most studios within a few weeks. But, that's not the reality that we all live in, right? Okay, so presentation of the content. How does your service look? Looking at the camera, lyrics there for them to see, overlaid to where it looks decent. Then interaction, and this is what you had asked in the back before, interaction with folks. So there's no audio on this one. Here is just an example. That's Bill Tucker. He's our senior pastor. So this is a church online platform. We can talk about that a little bit later. But basically, it's a website. You put your video in it. You can put some links up top. You have your chat over here, and you're done. So one of our online hosts is engaging she's great. She hosts our 8 a.m. traditional service. The people on there know her and love her. She's there all the time. And say good morning and welcome and whatever. But there's not a lot of chat. There's not a lot. There could be in some places. Here's what I think it is. Have you guys ever watched some of the fancier or more contemporary churches like Elevation or Life Church? Have you ever seen their stuff online? There's a lot of engagement. There are also a lot of young folks. There's a lot of those are the popular churches for your college teenagers, for example. So they like that kind of stuff. I don't know. It seems like not a lot of people that we have fully engage and chat much. There'll be some. But, she had a comment. We can hear him so much better today. Thank you because we made a fix because they were like, we can't hear him very well. Now, I could, but I've got a newer computer. And so my computer speakers made me louder and it didn't register with me. So we noticed there's a few changes we had accidentally made, didn't realize it, and we fixed it because somebody mentioned it. And so she's posting you probably can't read it from the distance, but it's not a big deal. But she's saying, first point, take your time. That's what Pastor said. Point number 1, take your time. Here's the scripture. The more we think about God's word, the more it becomes part of us. But you can see these are all her during the sermon. Nobody else is chatting in. They're just saying hi. That's most of what we get is comments. Hi, hello. Now, the cool thing is, again, this is Church Online platform. I'll give you a link at the end. Everybody should sign up. It's free forever, and it's amazing. They have this is created by Life Church. This is a gift to the church. This is a gift to the capital C church. It's just embed code. Embed code. So it's not fancy, it's not complicated. It's easy to use. You schedule your services and they're there, and as long as you're streaming, then it shows up.
Where are you guys streaming from?
Not
the complicated, sorry.
We currently use StreamMonkey. We're switching to Resi.
Okay.
So
Does it archive your services?
this does not, but you can schedule anything. I can schedule something for right now that's called testing stuff out for my conference, and just put a video in there. He's paused. So it's a gift to the church from Life Church. It's free. You sign up for it, and they have to approve you. They want to make sure you're a church, and then that's about it. And then you have this site, and you can point people to it. You can do your domain to it, like we're.concordia.cc. That's our website. So we added a subdomain, which they kind of give you the instructions how to do that. Live.concordia.cc is really simple. But we just click it on our website. We don't even tell people to go here. We just say, hey, go to concordia.cc and click watch online. Well, the trick is watch online links to here, right? But so they like, oh, I just watched on the website. They really mean this, but they're going to our website first. And since this is a gift to the church from Life Church, there's prayer request section. So people can ask for prayer requests right there. They can submit them if you want when you're like not here, when you're offline. They can submit them, but they also, the hosts have a different role. You can see it says host right here. I designated her as having this ability. We'll get prayer requests, and we'll type a prayer request right there to somebody and pray live. It's just another way for them to feel connected. I'd rather be praying with them in person and laying my hands over them. But they're online, so we're going to do what we have, right? Yeah.
So do you prioritize your community engagement with having the volunteer to host on this platform exclusively, or do you have a Facebook host as well?
Facebook host as well, yes. Yeah, so this is another thing that you can add that's a blessing for your church is this is volunteer opportunity. Hosting people online. Greeting them, welcoming them. And it could be one person. It could be multiple hosts. It can be once a month, once every 6 months, whatever. And the blessing is it's not complicated. What you don't need tech people to do this. You need heart people to do this. You want people who love people and who are extroverts and want to talk. Yeah.
Have you guys developed like training guidelines for people to host?
Yes, some. I could probably do better at that. I haven't. I've got like a PDF. It's pretty basic. I really meet with them ahead of time first and FaceTime and talk and just have them shadow me one Sunday online, and then I let them do it. And it's worked out so far. Yeah.
Do you have your hosts be on campus, or do you have them?
No. Now that's a cool idea. They do it from home. Yeah. But what I would love is like a dedicated section where we could highlight that. It's like church online, and they could be there hosting. That's a very cool thing. We haven't done that yet, but that's cool. But yeah, you can do it from home. You can do it from anywhere.
One thing I've noticed with the chat, I get the same, and I didn't know I was the host, but I'm the host. And, sure. And I'll say hi, and I address them by name or their username because we're on YouTube.
Yep.
And over time, and it's taken like 7-8 months. It's been a long time. They start recognizing my name, and I recognize them. I'm like, hey, Ron, welcome back. Or I can kind of throw in. And even though I've never met them in person, I got one. I was like, I'm so, I missed a Sunday, or I was actually off. It was weird. And I came back that next Sunday, and I'm like, oh, we missed you last Sunday, and I was like.
Yeah, and that's
really
cool.
So they don't chat a lot, but they're there.
Right. They know you're there, and it's
So that consistency.
it's a presence in a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can't even get people to say good morning. They say, well, we watch full screen.
Well, that's true.
So the chat's not up. So how do you even get someone to the point of it's worthwhile to have your chat up?
Where are they watching? Do you know?
On YouTube, on their computers,
Okay,
their TV.
okay. YouTube, when you post a comment, it will pop up. They'd have to, there's not much you can do. Now, you can make a pointed effort to, like, if you created, we've done this before, you create like an online church, like a pre-service bumper or a pre-service announcement just for online church, and you have to factor that in with your tech and how you do that. But you could say, hey, we're glad to be here. We want to hear from you. Send us, how's the weather today? Wherever you are, let us know. You can do something like that. The pastor can also do that too. Briefly, I think Zach may have even said something. Yeah, he did. He said, hey, and if you're there on Facebook or YouTube, just post hi in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Took him a second and a half,
Yeah, that's the thing we run into. We've been doing COP for a year and a half. Even when I'm at home and I'm not meeting or whatever, the link that we have, even when you have a smart TV, you pop it up, it will not show you the chat box. And I think there's a lot of people that we're trying to figure out better ways to help people to open the chat box. But I think you have to be real careful of who your audience, your target is. I mean, if there are people who are in there, they're older, they don't feel comfortable doing that. They just want to watch it.
They may not.
So it is definitely a challenge to get people to interact.
We all want them to interact, and a lot of them don't want to. And that's okay. As long as we're there for them, that at least provides something and shows them that, like, we're interested in you, we care about you, and we're here if you have a question. Yeah.
I think part of it is kind of how we define specifically engagement. I think it's gratifying for us specifically when we see the likes and the comments. But I mean, I have a shut-in couple who have been watching online faithfully for 2 years, and I know absolutely that they'll never comment, but I know their ritual because I bring them communion. They have an iPad, they set it up on their table, they have their hymnals, they sing along to everything, they're praying the prayers. They are engaged as anyone
Absolutely.
in present.
Yep.
But so I think we need to drive engagement, and we want intentionality behind their worship. I think just the comments are just one metric in other ways that they're doing it.
Yeah. So, make your services online friendly. Second thing is provide follow-up. This is a big deal. So this can hit those folks, those people who are not engaging. There is a connection card. We ask people to fill that out every week. And the idea is partly attendance. It's if they have needs, that's also how they can sign up for stuff. You would have to tailor that card. It's just a link to like a form. But tailor that to how you would want that to look for your congregation. And probably pick a goal for the first time. Like, okay, we're starting a connection card. Bare minimum information. You don't need their address. Bare minimum. Name and email, right? Maybe phone if you really need to go down that route. But you don't want to be the church that comes across as being a data miner, right? And
None of us would do that.
right, but the connection card, yeah, that's what we do. The connection card is the idea where you can ask one question. How can we pray for you this week? Or I'd like to have follow-up. Something like that. This can be a way that you start to follow up after the services throughout the week with people who are there. And because a lot of times people who create a nickname, especially for the church online platform, you don't know who they are. They can create a nickname and not have all their info in. And some people create a nickname and they do have their info. So this can be a way, again, you're providing the opportunity. We can't make anybody do anything. We can't make them come up for communion in the service live, right? We can't make them fill out the attendance card in the pews. We can't make them fill this out.
Any recommendations for you use? Do you say connection, sign up here, anything?
We use connection card is what we call it. Yeah, please fill out the connection card. We'd love to hear from you. Things like that.
Can you do that during the service?
We do that sometimes. Sometimes we do it. We have a bumper that goes ahead of it that does it every time. Yeah.
There's a thing that's built into this too called moments.
Yeah.
Where you can actually pop in, you can create your different moments. Like if there's, if you want to send people to the connection card, you want to have people sign up for an event, whatever it is, specific areas of the pastor's sermon you want to copy, you want to type it all out. Whoever your host is, they can click on those moments and it'll pop into the chat already done. So like we do a one that says, "Who's happy to be worshiping here today?"
Whoops, sorry.
And you just click the little, and everyone's like, "Yeah, hey, how's it going?" It's kind of that. So that's all built into this. It's really cool.
You can see ours. Is this going to pop up over video? Yeah, right there. See, we have ours on the right at the top. It's one of the links that they give you. This goes back to our main website, connection card, message archive, because a lot of people come here and go, well, how do I hear the sermon from 2 weeks ago? So we did that. Give online, of course, and to get the worship guide. Yeah.
For Facebook, how do you give them access to fill out that connection card?
Just a link in the comments. So we have Facebook hosts also, and I provide to them I call it the Church Online clipboard, but it's copy and paste words, phrases with links. Here's a sermon notes if you'd like that. I type it out to give them. Now they can type whatever they want, but I give them this easy way so that they don't have to try to craft these thoughts every week. It's just get your stuff.
Sermon notes, are those provided by your pastor ahead of time? The host isn't having to come up with them?
Correct. Yes. He provides them. We put our sermon notes on our website as a PDF. The Church Online platform has a link for sermon notes, like a space. You can put them in there. And then I also add them to YouTube. YouVersion, the events.
YouVersion, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's my Sunday morning. 7 a.m. is entering those all in because that's when I get them. Okay, connection card. Now, another great way to follow up that we all can sit here and roll our eyes at, and the young people definitely do. That's not me because I'm in my 40s. Is email. Email. Remember we talked about not owning your platform, right? So you don't really own the communication. You get the communication that Facebook lets you have. But email, they come to you because you're saying, hey, if you want to hear from us, sign up. And they choose to sign up. This is like intentional. They're like raising their hand saying, hey, talk to me. And so this is still a great way to connect to people. There's huge stats. And I think on Carey Nieuwhof's blog, which I'll have a link to at the end, just the other day, he talked about the open rate of email and how effective it still is. And he's absolutely right. I'm going to kind of press forward with this. But email's a great way. Another way is still texting. There are text systems out there. You don't have to do it from your phone, and give everybody your number. There are systems and services you can sign up with to follow up after the fact. And there's ways that they can kind of like, the Connect card. Hey, if you want to get our Connect card, send a text. Send Connect to 51555, and it can send them a link back. Again, now we're hitting everybody in different niches, right? We're hitting the email folks. We're getting the texting folks. We're getting the app folks. We're getting the social media folks, and the in-person.
So during the message, I have the text there so people can ask questions.
Mhm.
We may address it later.
Yep.
But I will say when I send out the weekly stuff, our older members are the ones who respond to it.
Mhm.
I think they love the fact that they can text.
Mhm.
It's interesting.
A lot too, yeah. St. Mark in Houston does a great job of the texting. They've really taken that on, and they're doing awesome. Third thing is to offer community. Now, this is where it kind of gets complicated, more so. Because online community, we've all had it. We all lived with it for, at the bare minimum, it was a couple months where everybody was essentially almost mandated to be, right? So we all have had to deal with it. We all valued for what it had, and we also hate it, right? But a lot of people like online community. And so one of the ways that you can do this is actually with groups, is with small groups, life groups, community groups, whatever you call them. There are absolute ways to, as you saw with Zoom, that's a method just to have a small group. Like that's a way that you can help bring those who are watching online into community of some sort. Again, we can't make them, but we can provide opportunities that they can take. You can mix them. You can have some groups say, hey, we're happy. We'll take a couple online members. That's fine. We meet in person and we'll put the laptop up. So that's another great way. The other thing is like a Facebook group. You, as the administrator or the pastor or whomever, can have we have a church online Facebook group, Concordia Online, where folks, we can engage and talk, and I can send them resources and things like that. So that's another way. You're following up throughout the week. So now they're watching on Sunday. They're hearing from a host and somebody who will pray with them. Maybe they're getting followed up with through the Connect card. Maybe they're joined here and they're getting followed up through a Facebook group, or they're joining a community group. We've got a lot of our online folks who also give and tithe to Concordia. This is something that gets controversial next, and that's okay. I understand. Membership. We have online membership. They're called global members. Feel free to steal it if you like that name. We were like local and distant. No, we did global. Okay, that works. Global members. So they claim Concordia as their home church. They receive communication from us. They consider Pastor Tucker their pastor, me their pastor. They'll talk to us. We've had folks come in from out of town for one of our retreats. They're like, hey, this is my church. This lady just came in October from Virginia. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a long drive. And she went on a retreat and she loved it. Yeah.
How do you remain a sacramental church to these people?
So that's where it does get complicated, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That'll be the other thing that's really offensive. So there's been times when needs have arisen that I've connected them with a local Lutheran church. Now, that's not to pawn them off. It's because this needed somebody in person, right? So then that's the next fun thing. Well, that's later, but
How many people would you say you have as global members?
right now, it's not a lot. We just started it last year. I'd say we're at, who have actually taken that step, 150, somewhere in there.
It's still a lot.
It's a good amount, yeah. It's not, but my point when I say it's not a lot, to mean it's not floodgates. These are people we know, we connect with as we can, and they've wanted to become members. They go through our membership class. They do all that. So the fun thing that's really controversial is communion. Now, we all had to deal with that during COVID. Some churches opted out. Some churches did whatever. We talked to our district president. We prayed about it. We considered a lot of things. We tried to come up with ways to be faithful. I've got a resource for you at the end that I can give you if you want it, because I don't want to get into the theological implications of it, because it wasn't my decision, first of all. I was in part of the conversation. But we will have, our pastor will consecrate the elements in person, and we say, if you're watching online and you'd like to participate, grab some bread, grab some wine or grape juice, because we still allow grape juice as well if needed for those who don't prefer alcohol. And we say, if you're with somebody else in the room, we're consecrating this right now. You can say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you say, this is, Christ's body for you, Christ's blood for you. We allow them to do that with our pastor doing it live. What we don't do is keep that online for on demand. We pull that down. Whenever we have a communion service, that gets pulled down. Nobody's allowed to just go jump on Facebook right now and say, I'm just taking communion, I'm just taking communion, I'm just taking communion. Those are gone immediately. Because we felt that was not very faithful to just have it to be, we want at least to be in the presence at the time live. Now, everybody can argue the positives and negatives of that and the faithfulness and not, but that's what we're doing, and we feel and think that it is a faithful way to manage that. Now, what that means is then, on every communion service, I got to edit the service and pull out communion and then repost it for folks, right? It's good. So that's how we've handled that. Baptism, we actually haven't dealt with yet. Everybody so far has been a baptized person. I would love to go to them, or that's a moment where I may connect them with a local Lutheran church, right, in order to have them be baptized by a pastor there. So there are different methods around that, okay? Now, we talked about analytics before with when you don't own the system. Now, none of us own the system. None of us are creating all these websites ourselves, but there's some that I'll give you some more info. So analytics with groups, for example. So is anybody here, well, doesn't matter. Planning Center, if you're not using Planning Center online to help plan your services, you really should be. Now, you may have your own method that works well, but they offer a lot more. So we use Planning Center to manage our services. They have it's called Music Stand. They have an app that, if you're a musician, you get the sheet music on an iPad so that if you can change it, then your volunteers can see the change immediately on their iPad. You're not printing off stuff all the time. We use it to manage our room reservations and things like that, and groups. So we have lots of groups, some in person, some online, some are big Bible studies, once a week or whatever. So this is just a quick analytic I just grabbed a random small group. They have 9 members, average meeting 1 a month. The thing is, Facebook and YouTube you don't pay for. So you're under their kind of umbrella and whatever they want. When you pay for a service, that client typically is trying to give you a service that you want to continue to pay for, right? So we get much better analytics on this side of it by using things you pay for and when you're dealing with folks who are being engaged. Because now you can see, okay, well, maybe they didn't start then. They started here. They met once in November. They didn't meet in December. They met in January, and they had 6 members here. Looks like they added a couple more. 100% came in November. Looks like about 80% came in January. You can see this, and this is where analytics can be a true blessing for engagement. Because, again, showing 687 views on our church service means nothing. But showing that 6 people actually went to a small group means something. And these analytics on the back end, on the active end, can help you really see how growth and spiritual formation is going in your congregation. So again, the goal is to move from passive participation to active participation. That's all I got for you. Here's some links. I will put this in the Hova app if you don't have to write it all down. One thing I didn't get into is copyright. That's a whole beast. And I'm not informed to give you all the information. This website tells you so much. ChristianCopyrightSolutions.com. Because and CCLI. Because you're streaming your stuff, you're streaming songs. We paid 5 or 6 licenses a year, like umbrella licenses to cover for videos and the phone system and the pre-service and the band and all that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just a couple comments. One about copyright information. I was shocked to learn that our LSB hymnal, technically we don't even have the rights to put the lyrics on the screen in the room unless you buy a license.
Yes. Lutheran Service Builder.
Lutheran Service Builder, which we don't use because we use Planning Center.
CPH has a license.
So you have to buy the license. So anyway, for those of you who use that hymnal, just be aware of that.
Yep.
The other
Including the liturgy.
Including the liturgy. The other thing
Great job, guys.
about designing services with online in mind, we don't have a way of including like the worship guide or the bulletin or whatever for people online. So something to be mindful of when you're making slides or giving announcements, if you just say, check your bulletins for the information, the people online won't see that.
Yep.
So it's important to always, on your slide, it's gonna show up, make sure that you have the date listed, that you have a way to contact somebody or a resource for where to go. Because that's something that we forget,
Yeah.
being in the room.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I just have this piece of paper.
Right.
And I don't, so
Yep.
just something to be mindful of.
We put a worship guide online. We use Google Sites. It's a free thing. You know, everything from Google mostly is free, right? It just creates simple websites, sites.google.com. And that's our worship guide, is an image and then text and then links and whatever. So to cover that, because she's exactly right, we're so used to just going, check your worship guide for more details, and we got to factor in, are we covering everybody, right?
If you're new starting this, as a church plant pastor, if you call a lot of these companies and share with them you're a small church, we're just starting, give them a good story, there's a good chance they'll give you trials.
Yeah.
ClearStream, which is a texting service, they'll give you a full year for free. So just, when you look at this, there's ways, just call them up, share them a story, and there's a good chance you can do a lot of things affordable to start.
A lot of these companies want to bless the church. Yes, ma'am.
How do you handle the legalese of showing your congregation on a live stream? Do you have a slide that you do at the beginning of your loop that says basically, hey, by being in this, you're agreeing to be a part of our live stream
Nope.
service, and so we can, I've heard something to consider, because we ran into it. If you're gonna put little kids up on live stream, you have to have approvals for that, so
Yep.
just don't get yourself trapped. Or-
So I think we've added something to our membership class that deals with that. That, you know, it's one of those things like, hey, you agree to allow your video and face and whatever that says legally, in order so when they join as a member, they know. I mean, we have outdoor events we're going to be taking pictures of and putting it on the worship guide and the bulletin or whatever, right? Children, you're right. Be very careful with that. Absolutely. Now for our school, we have a school as well. That's in the contract or the agreement, whatever, so that for kids' pageants and stuff, because they want to be shown. And there are some students that we know they're not allowed to be shown because of a custody issue or something, and we have to consider that. Thankfully, the principal or the teacher is on that, and they make us aware. But yeah, absolutely, it's a big deal.
And just one final thing, if anybody needs a link, for training, I know we talked briefly about it near the beginning, saltuniversity.com, I believe it's a .com, I gotta double check, but Salt University has everything you would want if you wanna touch base, especially if you're new to it, it's been a blessing to us.
Yeah, are they affiliated with the SALT conference?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
And actually, if you go to lifechurch.tv's website,
Yep.
they have all their host online training.
Yep.
Download, all be used a lot of that.
Yeah, I didn't put it up here, or if you want to write down Life Church or Life.Church, they've got great things. Okay, so this is Digital Church Network. These are really just folks who are trying to do online church, and they're starting to get into metaverse. I'm like, that's dumb. We're not doing that. But Carrie Newhoff, texting, that's community.com. That's like a text service. It's great. Planning Center Online, you've got to use it. I promise you. Church Online Platform, that's the free website that you can put your stuff on. There was another one. Anybody else? No? Okay. Did you read?
Copyright is the biggest thing with,
Yeah.
especially COVID really
Yep.
brought it to light.
Yes, it did.
Even think Lutheran Service Book, even think if you don't have the proper, there's some hymns in there that you cannot stream, like Seek Ye First, a simple hymn like that. If you don't have the proper copyright,
Yeah.
you can't use it.
Most
A
of the
mighty
hymns are
fortress
public
is our
domain.
God. A mighty fortress is our God. You're not you can't legally even put the text up unless
That's public
you have
domain.
permission. Not the arrangement.
Not their
but
arrangement.
the
If you
hymnal.
play it out of the organ.
And it
Oh,
has to be at
well,
least 100
the words are public domain.
Yes.
but not
The words maybe, but not the tune. So if it's
Why
going
would
to
you
be on
need
a
to put
video,
music online?
if you're going to hear the audio,
Oh.
yeah.
If you're playing the
Play
exact
different-
sheet music.
Play different arrangement.
Exactly. Exactly. Anybody else? Oh, yeah.
Service building.
Can you talk for just a minute about your Sunday morning tech team? How many people are you using for this?
Okay, so the online church side specifically is actually just me and a few online hosts. So I'll host sometimes as a pastor. I'll have online hosts do that as well. We have 3 services every Sunday morning.
So, but I'm talking about like in-house, like.
Yeah, well, so that's Church Online, and then after the services, I do the editing, and I get stuff posted. I try to post as much as I can that day, so when people at night or the next day, their podcast is ready, their service is ready when they want to catch up. From the room, You've got, at any given point, technically 8 people, 10 people, because we'll have a switcher operator, we have a robo camera operator, we'll have a front of house sound, we've got slide operator, and then like 2 or 3 handheld cameras, and there may be one other person, lighting. So it just depends. Now that's not my department, I work with them, but that's not my team. And if somebody calls in sick, something suffers. The lights don't change that service or whatever, so they stay on. But yeah, it's a lot because of the multiple cameras. But if you have one camera, you're never changing that, then you just need to switch her and a slide operator maybe, and your lights stay the same, and you got 2 people. So that just depends. Yeah. Yes.
Can you dive a little bit deeper into? So we've actually had times where our pastor will have during the sermon, this actually happened not too long ago. We were doing an online thing for the youth.
Yeah.
And during that, it's kind of like confirmation type thing. And he showed a video.
Yep.
And we were live streaming it so that people could watch. And
it shut down.
Shut down.
Yep.
But after we explained that it was being used for educational purposes, for use, that type of thing, then it was put right back.
So YouTube?
YouTube.
Yeah.
What do we do in order to make it so that can we proactively put something up or something to make it so that it does not?
So yeah, YouTube, years ago, well, not that long ago, 2017, when YouTube first started streaming, I think it was Boston, had a fireworks show that they were streaming for the city of Boston. Tens of thousands of people were going to watch it. And when they had the pre-show music going from a Spotify playlist or whatever it was, YouTube shut them down. Because something so simple as anything that's copyrighted can get you shut down. Here's my answer. I don't know specifically if you can do something proactively. I know that for us, it's been working, and I don't get it. I'm afraid every time that they, if there's a little house music ahead of time and our people accidentally put it up in the stream, that it's going to shut it off. And it hasn't in years.
Let's see what's
I don't know why.
What's freaky about it is that when we've done it on Facebook,
Yeah.
Because we do it both,
Right.
it goes through.
Right.
So Facebook, it's fine.
They don't have time to check every single. Churches.
It's automated. It's an algorithm that listens. It's just like using Shazam.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, if your band's decent, sometimes that'll get flagged too. Because it sounds too close to the song.
Right.
So honestly, ideally, you wouldn't do that, right? You don't show videos in the sermon that are copyrighted. You're not showing movie clips because you can't stream those. So if you got to do that, then you separate your online and your house, and you have a pre-service online show, bumper, whatever you want to call it, content, announcements. And then when it's time to go live, you switch, and now you're live house. And if the pastor has a video, if he's got to show something from a movie, then you've got to have a slide, which we've done before too. It says, you know what, our service will be right back. This is copyrighted information. We can't, whatever you want to say, something nice. But we've done that because he was adamant about showing it. I'm like, we're going to get shut down. So.
I've even thought about like turning off the sound for the stream.
Yeah.
Just shutting off the stream and putting up a slide. But I thought,
yeah.
Well, I thought maybe there might be something that you would know of that we could do, but it doesn't sound
Not really. What we do have, and so my email's up here. I'm sorry if that's too small. tjw@concordia.cc, and I'm sure I'm on the Hova app. Feel free to email, ask anything. But we have during COVID, our band went in the studio and recorded a bunch of songs. And some of them are or not public domain, but some of them are not as popular, and some of them are. But there are recordings, and we're happy to share some of those. So you can have, now they're contemporary worship, they're not hymns or anything like that, but there are songs that we will happily let you have that you can play, and it won't get flagged for copyright because it's our recording. It's not, professional recordings. So there's that. And the other thing is anybody interested in that communion paper? It was a speech given at the Texas district. So if anybody wants it, email me or post it, and I can give it to you, that talks about some biblical justification for allowing communion distance-wise. But, yeah, copyright's a pain, but we got to deal with it. So, anything else? All right,
I just have a question about if anyone has an idea. We have a couple members that their eyesight isn't that great.
Yeah.
And they were watching our services on
Yep.
for them, they don't have a computer at home, and now the cable station's equipment is broken.
Oh,
And they're not showing our services anymore.
Yeah.
Anybody have some ideas? They do not have a computer or DVD in-house.
no, you'd have to provide it for them. That's the only thing you can do. They've got to have some source. You can't broadcast yourself over the air.
Right.
So you would either need to, at least not from any distance, so you would need to provide them a tech device of some sort. You can get cheap computers, you can get cheap TVs. You get a cheap 32-inch TV for probably $130. Roku for another $30-40 and stream to YouTube and get them on that. But you're gonna have to use the remote to get it. Yeah, there's still a barrier.
Have you looked at local radio stations for audio?
We have FM that we have broadcast in the area that reaches a couple of them, but
Yeah,
it's so
that's the other
hard
option,
when
go
they-
audio.
I mean, the DVD player, having them find the right button,
Yeah.
it's been difficult.
Navigating a road to.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Have a great conference. Thanks all.